Hey everyone, thank you so much for stopping back by the channel. If you're new, please consider subscribing. And all of you who are returning, I thank you so much for coming back. Everybody, please leave your comments to let me know what you think about this topic. And also, if you would, give the video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content. Now that we got all that out the way, I want to talk about this Old Testament again, you guys. This whole idea of these double standards when it comes to women in the Old Testament. Now, the funny thing is, whenever I see videos trying to talk about, some stuff about the differences in the way women was looked at, people always talk about how in this society that they had, this patriarchal society, this was a protection for women. They looked at women as very precious, and they wanted to protect them and all of this stuff. I don't buy that for 1 minute. Okay. If you are trying to protect me, then you're not going to kill me or stone me for not being a virgin on my wedding night. Okay. That's not what you're going to do. You're not going to sell me as a female slave being my father, right? I'm not going to be owned by you. So no, that I don't buy into all of that it was for a protection. Women were owned. Women were looked at as less than. Women were subservient. Okay. Also, people look to the New Testament and talk about how Jesus is and how Jesus had respect for women. That's cool. I appreciate that. Good job, Jesus. But that still doesn't have anything to do with the Old Testament. Because if Jehovah is Jesus's father, Jehovah should have been the one setting the example. Wouldn't you say? At the very outset of the Bible, isn't that what we should see? Jehovah setting this example for how women should be treated. And these few little situations in the scriptures where where Ruth was given some accolades, or when Abraham was told to listen to your wife, Sarah. Jehovah's Witnesses always make a big deal about these little things. Like, see, Jehovah said, listen to your wife. This shows that he really had respect for women. No, that is not what it shows. This whole polygamous nation of Israel, and these men that was able to sleep with whomever they wanted, basically, as long as it was not another man's wife. That is not having respect for women. Men could just, sleep with concubines, and they didn't have to be married. There is no such thing as committing adultery when it came to a man, unless he was sleeping with a married woman, like I brought out in the polygamy video. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about a few of these double standards that we see. So, first one I want to draw your attention to is in Leviticus chapter 12, verses 1 through 5. Okay. And I'm in the New International Version. Okay. Anybody who doesn't know, I always put Jehovah just because I used to be a Jehovah's Witness. And so that's just the name I use. It doesn't mean I believe that that's God's name. Here we go. Jehovah said to Moses, "Say to the Israelites, a woman who becomes pregnant and gives birth to a son will be ceremonially unclean for 7 days, just as she is unclean during her monthly period. On the 8th day, the boy is to be circumcised. Then the woman must wait 33 days to be purified from her bleeding. She must not touch anything sacred or go to the sanctuary until the days of her purification are over. If she gives birth to a daughter, for 2 weeks, the woman will be unclean as during her period. Then she must wait 66 days to be purified from her bleeding." Okay. So I'm sure you all caught that. Not so much that the woman is unclean during her after childbirth. Okay. Because we know as women having children, there's a lot of stuff that goes on with all that. It's not about that. Okay. It's about the fact that it says that when it's a boy, the woman will be unclean for 7 days. It says she must wait 33 days to be purified from her bleeding. Okay. But when it's a girl, she will be unclean for 14 days and will have to wait 66 days. So double the time for everything. Why is that? What are you trying to say, Jehovah? What are you trying to say? Okay. Or should I say, man who wrote this, what are you saying? Because there is no way, you cannot tell me that the Almighty, the one who created male and female in his image, that he really truly thinks that women is double the, dirtiness of man. Come on now. When it's simply saying all she did was give birth. So it's like I said, it's not about the birthing process. Okay. It's about the fact that she gave birth to a girl versus a boy. So she's more unclean when she gives birth to a girl. Come on now. There is no way that the creator of all wrote this or had man to write this. That makes absolutely no sense. Okay. It makes absolutely no sense. But then you notice how it said, like she is unclean during her period. Okay. So let's go to Leviticus 15, and we're not going to read all of this. It's verses 1 through 33. And you could have the pleasure of reading this in your own time if you really are curious. Chapter 15, starting off in verse 3. Okay. Oh no, verse 2 and 3. Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when any man has a bodily discharge, the discharge is unclean. Whether it continues flowing from his body or is blocked, it will make him unclean. This is how his discharge will bring about uncleanness. Then it starts talking about his bed that he lies on, and everything that he touches basically will be unclean. Okay. And then we go to verse 16, talking about when a man has an emission of semen, he must bathe his whole body with water. And this is verse 16. And any clothing or leather that has semen on it must be washed, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now, verse 19, it starts talking about the woman. When a woman has her regular flow of blood, the impurity of her monthly period will last 7 days, and anyone who touches her will be unclean until evening. Then it goes into anything she lies on during her period will be unclean. Anything she sits on will be unclean. Whoever touches her bed, whoever touches anything she sits on, etc., etc. Okay, now this is why this thing is so crazy to me, you guys. When a man has a discharge from his member, as it states in some versions of the Bible, what does that generally mean? Okay, that means that he got something going on. He probably got some type of infection, STD, something, right? Okay, so when you talk about unclean, I could see that. I could see that because that kind of stuff could be contagious and all of that, right? But when a woman has her monthly cycle, we all know, those of us who have done sex education and who knows anything about the female body, that this is a normal process. If the egg is not fertilized, then the lining of the uterus, and then that's where the blood comes from. Okay, so Jehovah made the process of childbirth, correct? And this is a part of what happens if you don't get pregnant. So what, are you supposed to get pregnant every month in order for you not to be unclean? Because this is only as a result of not fertilizing the egg. It's not just about blood, is it? Because you're not unclean if you just bleed. Like if you get bump yourself somewhere and you have blood, you're not unclean in that situation. But yet you're talking about the reproductive system and there being something connected to that makes her unclean. If you look up the word menstruation, you guys, in the dictionary, one of the definitions of it says something about a curse. In the King James Bible, it refers to it as a sickness. So are we to believe that Jehovah, the creator, actually feels this way about us women? That doesn't even make any sense that the one who created us would think that. Of course, a person should be clean, and be sanitized and do whatever they need to do when they're on their cycles. But that doesn't mean that it would fall in line or should even be compared to somebody who's having discharge from like a STD or something. That's not even the same thing. One is natural and one is unnatural. Okay. So, this is completely absurd. But anyway, one more scripture I wanted to call your attention to that shows these, the way that Jehovah apparently feels about women and some of these double standards is what is mentioned in Exodus 21 verses 2-9. Okay. This is, how the Bible sometimes has a heading. Mine has Hebrew servants. Okay. So here we go. If you buy a Hebrew servant, he is to serve you for 6 years. But in the 7th year, he shall go free without paying anything. And then I'm not going to even read these other verses. It just talks about if he comes alone versus if he doesn't, if he gets a wife along the way, blah, 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 whatever happens. Okay, now, verse 7, let's skip down to that. If a man sells his daughter as a servant, okay, let's back up before I even read the rest of that. It said at the beginning of this one, at the beginning of the man, in verse 2, if you buy a Hebrew servant, it doesn't say if a man sells his son. Okay, that's already telling you something right there. It's not that a man would be selling his own son. It's some other way that you would be purchasing a Hebrew servant, apparently. But then we go to this one. If a man sells his daughter as a servant, she is not to go free as men servants do. Oh, really? Why? What happens to her? If she does not please the master who has selected her for himself, he must let her be redeemed. So then, okay, she can go on if she's not pleasing. She can be repurchased back, if she's not pleasing to him. He has no right to sell her to foreigners because he has broken faith with her. If he selects her for his son, he must grant her the rights of a daughter. Okay. This is a load of crap. A man selling his own daughter. So she is a slave for life, as it states here, if you really are paying attention. Unless she doesn't please the master, unless she's not good in bed, like what is the situation? Because this female servant are considered concubines, like I talked about in the polygamy video. So it would be just like a side piece to this man who may already have multiple wives. So he can add this one little concubine or female servant to his line of women that he wants to have or whatever, sold by her own father as if she's a piece of property. Okay. But she would pretty much be a slave for life because she doesn't get to leave after 6 years like the male servants do. So you can't tell me that there's not double standards when it comes to women. You can't tell me that these laws that Jehovah apparently put in place were a protection. Because what are you protecting the woman from? You think women just can't take care of ourselves? Is that what you think? We got to be taken care of by a man, like by our father, and then to, a slave master or a husband, because we just can't take care of ourselves. We need men to take care of us. But actually, this is established in Genesis according to this supposed fall, right? That the man will rule over you. That's what Genesis was establishing. So I guess it kind of makes sense, huh? But anyway, this is just something I find very interesting. I know many of you have already seen many of these things. There is no way, there is no convincing myself or many of us who have begun to look critically at these things that this was the Almighty Creator. There is no way. If we're both made in his image, then why aren't we being treated like it in this Old Testament? If, as we say, Jehovah was setting the nation of Israel apart as his special people, these people that was supposed to stand out, just like Jehovah's Witnesses believe that you are those people in this day, right? Which means that you're supposed to stand apart from the world. You're supposed to be better than the world. You're not supposed to do the things that the world does. You're not supposed to treat your spouse the way the world treats their spouse. No, you're supposed to be better. You're supposed to follow these Bible principles, right? So, of course, these Bible principles that we talk about in our day were not what was going on in the Israelite times. If Jehovah really feels the way that we are assuming as it relates to the New Testament, you know, as we supposedly see in the New Testament, that he couldn't have had the Israelites treating their women differently. These things that I just read about are in the laws of Israel. You mean that if Jehovah gave them all of these laws, that he couldn't spell out for them how to treat women, how to treat women fairly? Leave me your comments and let me know what you think about this particular topic, okay? And I look forward to seeing you on the next video.